Welcome back to Yield Today of Dallin Candland. I'm here with Donnie Boivin, and he runs the Success Champions online networking and entrepreneurship group, the Growth Mode podcast, and has so much other stuff to go along with his story. Just excited to talk about focus and everything else that comes out of this conversation. So thanks for coming, Donnie.
Thanks, Donald. I really appreciate it. And the fun conversation we've had already, this is going to be a pretty cool conversation. Hopefully, can do some good things for your audience and your listeners.
I agree. So let's bring it back to focus. Why is it so important that we're channeling our focus in good directions, like just on a general basis?
I think because we're all secretly the dog from Up, squirrel, on a regular basis. I know for a lot of my journey that without having focus, everything just goes everywhere, and nothing actually gets done. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 45, so a little over a year ago, I guess now. And, getting that type of diagnosis doesn't give me an excuse for how I behaved as a kid, but it sure makes a good explanation for a lot of the ways I showed up. And focus is what allowed me to build, three companies and do all the things we have, and building this global brand that we continue to put out there. So it's literally about getting dialed in. And for me, focus a lot of times is simply routines and figuring out what those routines are and then maintaining them.
I'm already getting chills because you said ADHD at 45 and I got diagnosed at 20, and it's like crazy how so much of the puzzle makes more sense when it's like, oh
Mm.
yeah, this is part of it, and it's like, oh, okay, well now I understand a lot of this stuff more. And yeah, go a little bit more into that. Was there something that more or less fell apart in your life, and you went to go talk to somebody? It's like, hey, I don't know what this is. I can't think straight.
Yeah, so at 45 as well, I started seeing a therapist for the first time in my life. The doctors that I ended up talking to said that most people who find out later in life that they have an ADHD diagnosis are because they're in a highly stressful situation. So at the time, I was building three companies. My wife was still working a full-time career. She just quit her job to come work the farm for us, and there was a lot of moving parts happening, and things were. I wasn't remembering to do things, which is not me. I was having things fall through the cracks. I was scattered in meetings. I couldn't keep up with the information. And so I was talking with my therapist, and she asked me one question. She goes, "Do you close your kitchen cabinets?" And I laughed because one thing my wife always got on to me is close cabinets. And I didn't. She goes, "You need to go get tested for ADHD." She goes, "That's one of the biggest indicators is just simply closing a kitchen cabinet." And I went, she goes, "It's not that you don't know to do it. You just simply are distracted in the moment and it's totally out of sight, out of mind." And then I got prescribed and put on Adderall, and good, bad, or ugly with it. Dude, you want to talk about my momentous freaking impact and life change? Like, my staff now can tell you if I haven't taken my medication, because I'm just like Roger Rabbit and the Tasmanian Devil, did an 8 ball of crack and are now trying to do work. And I don't recommend that for anybody, but that's what it is for me, off my my medication. So it's been a game changer being diagnosed.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is beautiful, and I resonate so much with this. Like, it was even just a couple days ago. I had like some plans. I had a couple interviews, and I was like excited, and then I realized I just sort of bounced around the rest of the day, and there wasn't really any clear focus. And I got to the end of the day, and I was like so exhausted. I'm like, dude, what in the world did I actually do today? It's like I knew I had those two interviews, and then other than that, it's like I know I wrote a post here and I did this here, and I just kind of bounced all over the place. And I think of it sort of like a pinball game where it's like we know where we are, and we're bouncing and bumpering around, and it's cool. And all of a sudden, we end up in like the top part of the pinball game where you don't see anything going on. It's like I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. We just lost track.
Yeah, it was funny. As one day I was helping my wife out in the garden, and I was supposed to till the garden up for her. That's what it was. And as I, went to go get the tiller, I walked by our chicken area where we have this huge chicken coop and chicken run. And then I realized, oh, the pond wasn't fully flowing well, so I went over and now I'm fiddling with the pond, which led me cleaning out the pond and then cleaning out the pumps and the whole system. And about 2 hours later, she comes by, she goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm cleaning out the pond." She goes, "You're supposed to be tilling the garden." I'm like, "Oh, crap." So I go get the tiller, right? Well, go and get the tiller. I walk by the shed. There's a machine shed, and then there's our tool shed. And I walk by the tool shed, and I realize that the bench was all askew. So now I'm in there, I'm organizing all the tools. 30 minutes later, she comes and knocks on the shed door. She goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm organizing the shed." She goes, "Till the garden." And I finally got the tiller over there about 4.5 hours later than I was supposed to. But that's kind of the life of somebody with ADHD is it's we take care of what's in the moment and we'll completely forget about anything else that was in front of us that was supposed to be done. This is why I have to have routines like I do because if especially with a farm and 3 companies, if I don't have routines, then I will spend all morning working on the farm and not actually get to my desk and start doing interviews or working with staff or whatnot. So it's pretty challenging. But once you know it's happening, oftentimes now in the company, we just make a running joke of it. There goes Donnie again. So,
Yeah, I think it's a big part of the self-compassion equation because when you recognize some of these things as they've fallen apart before and you put those into your system, then you can trust more in the system and the
yeah.
system can build you up and provide that structure that you're not able to get anywhere else. And yeah, it's just a beautiful thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I wish more young people like the only regret that I really have in life is I didn't start a business in my 20s. And now, in my defense, nobody was talking like that when I was growing up, right? There was no entrepreneurs. Like I had a blue collar family. You went, you get a job, you worked for the next 20 some odd years, for other people, and I went down that path. And I think for the day and age and the times we're in, I mean, everybody wants some sort of freedom, whether it's a lifestyle freedom, financial freedom of some sort, whatever that is. Building a business can do for you. Now, it's not easy. Don't let anybody ever tell you building a business is easy. It's the tough thing I've ever done in my life. But what I love about the experience of building a business is you truly get to meet the dude in the mirror. And I use dude universally, guy, gal, doesn't matter, right? Because you're going to find yourself going through some of the toughest things, toughest challenges you've ever done, and you're going to get to a place where you run out of your own excuses. When you work for somebody else, you can totally make up all the excuses in the world, and they're real. They're still excuses, but they're real, right? But when you run your own business, there's no excuses. If the business isn't growing, you go sell something. If the business isn't working, go market something, right? If the clients are not happy, go fix the operations. And in doing that, what you're going to find is the people who truly find success are the people who are too crazy to throw in the towel. They pushed on where everybody else would have quit, and they kept moving forward. And I think because people see this Instagram world or this TikTok world that we live in, they think that there's a shortcut to life, or there's this influence. I'm going to be an influencer and the world's going to change, when they don't understand that shortcut they're trying to find is the one thing that's preventing them from actually get to that life of freedom they want, because you have to go through it. You have to screw it up. You have to learn from those screw ups and keep doing it. And, bring it back to the idea of focus. It's 100% about knowing what you're trying to do and then stay focused within the routines to get you there. Like I don't think the miracle morning type routine stuff that you have to have a specific morning that mimics everything I do. Like, people are like, you got to work out, you got to eat, you got to do that. I don't care about all that. I just think you should have a routine the way you start your day every day, right? There's a way I get to this desk every morning, and I'm able to do it, and I can follow that routine, and that's where I found a lot of success. But most people, they do let's just move through life and see what happens, throw caution to the wind, and because they have no focus, they don't know the life they actually want to live, they don't know what they want to do, they end up falling prey to everybody else. They go get jobs they hate, they get careers they're not live, they marry somebody that they don't really like, and it's all because of outside expectations versus knowing what you truly want and then working towards that thing. And building a business, I think, is the greatest tool in the world to figure out who you are and what you're made of.
I'd agree with that. It tests you and it teaches you a lot of things that you probably wouldn't learn any other way. I'm fascinated, Donnie, with our ability to remind ourselves and to tell ourselves things, like sort of subconsciously train ourselves, right? And remind ourselves like what we're going after, and then we prove it. Sometimes you could beat yourself up about like getting in a rabbit hole of like watching a YouTube video or something, but that same thing, that like that same brain that got super sucked into that is the same brain that's also going to accomplish everything that you want to accomplish in your life. It's going to be the same brain, and so you need to take care of it. But if you're willing to like listen to yourself and help yourself through that process, like you can get there. It just takes time, and I think a lot of it is being willing to say no. Like if
Okay.
your brain is all over the place, just being like, I mean, last week I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna have like hardly any outside voices at all. It's just gonna be me and like God and whoever I talk to, and that's it. And that was very restorative because I just knew it was just this was all coming from me. I guess is beautiful.
Yeah, what I love about that is most people are scared to spend time with themselves because of what will turn up, or their fear of what will turn up. Two of my favorite things to do in the world. One is to ride my tractor and mow the farm, because it's a 4 or 5 hour endeavor to mow the entire farm. And on there, I can't listen to podcasts because the tractor's so dang loud. I can't watch videos because I couldn't hear them anyways. So it's just me and the hum of the tractor. I've had people tell me that it's a form of meditation. I don't care if it is or isn't. It's a cool moment to be in your own dang thoughts and just think about what you think about. And some of the biggest innovations and breakthroughs we've made in our company and my personal life have been sitting on the back of a tractor. The other thing that I do is I'm a distracted learner, which means I have to be distracted to actually learn. So I doodle, I'll listen to podcasts. Well, every morning on the farm, one of my routines is to go do a 45-minute walk with my dogs. So I'll take my two German Shepherds, I'll release them in the front pasture, let them go play and run. And then I'll go walk gate to gate. And there's about 200 steps in between my two gates. And during that time, I couldn't, just walking wasn't enough a distraction for me to think. So I started putting on podcasts. And so I'll go to Spotify and I'll type in, whatever I want to learn, whether it's business, mindset, health, whatever I want to learn. And I'll find a show that I've never heard before, never listened to, and I'll turn it on and they get about 45 seconds. If it's good, I'll stay listen to them. If I'm not entertained, I'm out, right? And I've learned so much about myself because as I'm walking, and I call them walking thoughts, as I'm listening to that podcast, I'll get an aha or a light bulb moment will go off, and it may not even be listening to the show, right? It just may be my own thoughts going. I pull out my phone and I have Asana on my phone, and I have just a Asana space on there. It's called Walking Thoughts, and I'll jot down that thought. And then oftentimes, if people follow me on social media, especially on LinkedIn, I'll go that day on LinkedIn, and usually my first or second sentence is my aha from my podcast listening, and that becomes my social content because now I'm like, okay, this is that moment. I've learned this. Now, what do I really think about it? And I try and decipher my thoughts the rest way through my post. And that's been a lot of fun to do. And it's just my way to distractive learn things, and which I think a lot of people with ADHD, do, is they find some other way to be able to pay attention and focus when they can't actually pay attention and focus. So it's been a fun hack for me, if you will.
That's cool. Yeah, for me, like if I find a song I really like sometimes I'll just listen to that on repeat and go on a run and just like completely inundate myself with it. I'm curious, Donnie, since you've been posting on LinkedIn and doing your podcast and stuff, how's like the audience you've been focused on? Because that's where a lot of this is going too. Like if you know what audience you're going to focus on, then a lot of your content kind of writes itself. So how has that changed over time as far as who you're trying to target?
Yeah, I think universally, as I was putting out content, I was trying to save the world, if you will. And I think a lot of people go through this. I think some portion of us, we all got this vanity that our story needs to be told, right? People need to hear our mission. I think I was really heading down that way early on, and as the business continued to grow, and I realized that all I wanted to do is help as many people as possible get to freedom through building a business. Then the platforms changed for me and the dynamics changed for me, and a lot of my content went from, let me tell you how awesome I am, kind of feel to really let me tell you everything I screwed up and what I learned from it and how I fixed it. And so now it's more teaching what I wish somebody would have told me as I was building my business. And that's been a lot of fun. And the DMs I get from people, the comments I get, probably the biggest thing people say is like, man, I can't believe how raw you will get on LinkedIn sharing your story. And, building a business is hard. And when business got really hard for me, I didn't want anybody to know how bad business was, so I made myself an island, and I didn't tell anybody how bad we were struggling. And literally, just so your audience can know how crazy it got. I mean, my wife's Jeep got repossessed as I was building a business. We almost lost a farm in foreclosure. My wife and I both had to cash in our 401ks. For you younger people, 401ks, what old people used to invest in. We had to cash in those things to save the business. And during that entire time, nobody knew outside of my wife, because I thought, God, if anybody knew I was struggling, then nobody would do business with me. And it's actually the opposite, because entrepreneurs know what's going on. They know. And if you get around the right people, and that's the reason we launched our peer groups, you get around the right people, they're going to say, dude, I've been there. Hold on, go this direction, do this next. Or a simple, keep going, man. This is going to work. And it's you got to get around the people that are going through the stuff you're going through, because they will either give you advice to get through it or lift you up through the process. Probably one of the coolest memes I've seen of all times has a U.S. Marine sitting down in his hole, and you can tell the way it's drawn, he's battling depression and everything else. And his friends and family look at the U.S. Marine and they're like, hey, just suck it up, man. Get over it. You're no longer over there. Suck it up. And the Marine goes, I tried that, but I'm still in this hole. Doctor comes along and goes, you just need to take these medications and do this, and that'll help. And the Marine takes medications and all this, and he goes, I'm still in this hole. Therapist comes up and goes, you just need to think happy thoughts and be positive, and you'll get out of this hole. And the Marine, like, I tried, and he's still in a dang hole. Another Marine comes by and just jumps down the hole. And the first Marine goes, what the heck are you doing? He goes, now we're both in this hole. The second Marine goes, don't worry. I've been here before. I know how to get out. Let's go. Right? And I think that's what most people need, is somebody who's been through it, whether it's a coach, a friend, a mentor, a peer that they can get around that can say, hey, you need to go this direction, or have you tried this, or let me tell you what I did. And most people, because they make themselves an island and don't want people to know how bad it is, they don't find that advice, and they stay in misery, and misery loves company, and they'll just continue to make themselves miserable.
No man is an island. Find a place to channel that focus. Find people to rally around. Yeah, that's beautiful. I know we need to let you go, Donnie. So we appreciate you jumping on and sharing these beautiful thoughts real quick. What's a good way to get in touch with you?
Well, before I go, and one, if you ever want to do this conversation again, happy to anytime. But if you got any value out of this, having my own show, I can tell you the hardest thing in the world to do is to build an audience. Do Dallin a favor and share this episode or any other episode you got value out for him. Just share it to one person who needs to hear the messages and stuff he's putting out there. Literally, you share it to one person like you gave him a virtual hug, and it will mean the freaking world to him. So you can find me, Donnie Boivin, Boivin, on any of the platforms out there, DonnieBoivin.com. And the coolest thing you can do for me, guys, is if you will take a screenshot of this episode and tag Dallin and me in there to say you listen to the show or you watch the show, I promise if I see it, I will comment on there and freaking try and get you any information, advice, and help Dallin out as much as possible.
I love that. Thank you so much, Donnie. It's much appreciated,
Absolutely.
and we'll look forward to next time. Take care, man.